Welcome, making room for the other, is the very center of our faith. And I'm so proud of these 16 missioners that went out into the world and did just that. Welcomed and accepted welcome. We made like Jesus' disciples who he sent out, and were sent by you to share the good news of God's love in word and deed. And we have good news to share. We were received and welcomed with open arms. So it is my joy to invite a few members of our Mission Possible 2014 team to come forward and share with you some of the ways that room was made for God through the welcome of so many people in so many wonderful places.
We took 2 bands down to Crisfield, Maryland, and right from the start, the snacks were flowing and the music was popping. I knew in that moment we were all going to have an awesome experience together. Being new to the entity of the mission trip, I was a little reluctant on attending. As a first-timer, it can be nerve-wracking knowing multiple people you've surrounded yourself with have some unforgettable memories made together already. Quickly, my uneasy senses were swept away from my mindset. The welcome sense I felt from my group members and the chaperones was unreal. I was especially grateful for the chaperones who designated a week of their own summer vacation to spend time with a bunch of smelly teenage kids. When we arrived at the church in Crisfield, one of our key objectives was to recollect on our welcome moments at the end of each day. While building a brand new house for a 70-year-old woman named Lucy, who lost everything during Superstorm Sandy, we were blessed enough to meet 2 wonderful supervisors named Chip and Ray. Ray was the man in charge, and let me tell you, he was bossy and extremely grouchy. By the end, we were able to get his hard exterior to crack. Chip, on the other hand, was extremely shy at first, but later opened up to us, proving that he had an overarching sense of humor and a total sense of generosity, such as when he was eating a peach and offered me it when it was completely half-eaten. Kind of gross. As a smaller group, we became really close with one another and were able to come up with some comical nicknames for each other. For example, our chaperone, Maddie Fell, was known as El Chapo. Cat Reagan was known as Cat Shotgun Reagan. Mike was the master, considering he knows all things construction. Ian was Zippity Doodah, which is self-explanatory. Al was known as Captain Headband, and I was known as Speed Racer. No need to question where those babies came from. But anyway, our supervisors Chip and Ray were glad to contribute to these nicknames, along with teaching us other valuable skills that are necessary to build a brand new home. Hours of time was spent putting up scaffolding, building the deck, sheathing the roof, and hammering nails onto the top of the house with paper to prevent any water damage leaking through the ceiling. In 90-degree weather, with long pants on, the work was pretty backbreaking and extremely sweaty. But through the welcoming attitudes of Chip and Ray and the expression of unity between all mission trippers, it made teamwork possible. By the end of each night, we were all able to share a welcoming moment we felt that day. Because when God introduces new people into our lives, we are accepting His grace by accepting them.
Crisfield was a small town, and it was somewhat overlooked when Hurricane Sandy hit. But even so, I was skeptical when I heard that we would be going to provide relief from a storm that struck in October of 2012. Now, some did work on building a new house because the old one was severely damaged by Sandy, but the rest of us didn't do much sandy work. I spray painted a swing, trimmed hedges, and looked for an important document at the local library. But all these activities did not address any direct results of Hurricane Sandy. However, many people were devastated by Sandy, and although much of the damage had already been done, and many people had already received help, the fact that someone still cared enough to assist Sandy victims in a town as small as Crisfield helped them psychologically. They may not have done any physical labor to counteract the effects of Sandy, but my presence, along with the work I did do, helped the Sandy victims recover psychically and emotionally. The physical damage of the storm caused emotional turmoil, and because we offer our time, we may have helped ease this intangible damage. We offer our presence. Sometimes just showing up
few newcomers. It took some time to feel welcome. I was extremely quiet at first because I felt intimidated by the high school students. But eventually, I became comfortable enough to call them my friends. Meeting these new people was just like building a campfire, with the wood as the stories and jokes we shared, and the flames as the relationship we built. You start off with burning kindling, and gradually increase the amount of wood you add, to build a nice, steady fire. Even when the fire burns out, you are still left with embers that blaze on for a lifetime. When we help the people of Crisfield, Maryland, we welcome them into this flame of friendship. Since I am under the age of 16, I was unable to work on the construction site. One of the jobs I was given was to work at Bibby's house. Me and a group of others split up the work, and we did jobs such as painting benches, patios, barns, and chicken coops that were in dire need to get attention. We fixed her fence that had been broken due to Sandy and other wear and tear. We pruned bushes, fixed scattered brickwork, and many other things. Bibi and her son are super busy people who work hard to support themselves. They hardly have enough time to work on their house to get it ready as a bed and breakfast. We were welcomed to Bibi's house right away as we stepped on her property. She gave us a complete tour of her house. She made us delicious iced tea and offered us anything else we needed. She did this all to strangers that she only just met. And we returned her warmth by welcoming her to stand around the fire with us in the hands of God.
When I think back to our mission trip, 3 words really come to my mind. They are fellowship, commitment, and graciousness. We started our trip with a hug and goodbye from our loving families, followed by a near 3-hour car ride to Crisfield, Maryland. From then on out, our group began to create inseparable bonds that may last a lifetime. This was caused by the fellowship that occurred between us. On a couple occasions after work, our group would visit a dock in the town and that was located on the Chesapeake Bay. We swam, crabbed, hung out, and shared many laughs. Following this, we took crabs back to the kitchen at the church which we stayed in. After cooking with the steam team, I sat down at the table over a hot plate of blue claw crabs. As I sat down, I noticed a very touching sight. I looked around, and everyone was satisfied. The art of fellowship through a trip and a meal to the Chesapeake Bay truly bonded us on this youth trip. Our commitment in the work we performed shined through even the toughest of times, the hottest of days, the humid climate, and the onerous tasks we pushed through with commitment. This was the case for many of us working high up on scaffolding in near 90-degree temperatures with a very prominent touch of humidity. In reality, it felt a mere 100 degrees. Our teams divided and conquered on several much-needed projects to prosper in our handiwork. Our graciousness prevailed in such a way to be an imperative quality on our trip. One such example was how on the last working hour of the last day, it was hot and humid. The last day of work, it began to rain, in which some would call a torrential downpour, but we would call it liquid sunshine. The streets of Crisfield were partially flooded, and the crew of Mission Possible workers enjoyed every minute of this event by either making waves with Tommy Thompson in the van or crashing through puddles in the streets of Crisfield. The appreciation to the much-needed rain was cherished throughout our group through either a laugh or a smile. Thank you so much for your love and time that you supported us by this congregation and the burning heart of this community.
Thank you not only for preaching here, but preaching at 8 o'clock as well after a long, exhausting, hard work week. And Tommy, we wish you a great week of vacation and maybe you catch up on your sleep. You inspire all of us and make our hearts swell. You represent the very best of St. Thomas Church, our community, and our nation. And we're extremely proud of you. Thank you for being great ambassadors from our church and serving others. I want to thank the entire congregation for the way you strongly support this church so that we can have an outstanding children's and youth ministry program, so that we can form young lives and that the future of this church and our community and our nation will be great because of folks like you. Thank you.